Hello and welcome to Everything iPad, the show all about the iPad. My name's Matt, and every week we take a look at different aspects of using the iPad, whether you're a professional user, complete beginner, or somewhere in between. And we're looking to build up a community of people who are looking to make the iPad prominent in their workflow, whether it's going to be your main computing device or, in some cases, your only computing device. And this week we're going to be taking a look at the Reminders app on the iPad. And I think it's an app that's in competition with lots of great apps out there. And I've used loads of productivity apps myself. I've used apps like Things and Microsoft To Do and Google Keep. But it's the stock app that I keep coming back to. It's one that really interests me. And I think that, you know, apps like Things is amazing, but it's way too much for what I need. And apps like Microsoft To Do and Google Keep and that kind of thing, they don't quite do enough for me. It doesn't have all the features that I want. And I'm going to talk all about how I use the Reminders app in my workflow. And hopefully it'll be something that'll be quite interesting to you. So I've used all these different apps before, and I keep coming back to the stock Reminders app. And you might be asking why. So the first thing I really like about this app is its ease of use. It looks really simple in terms of its layout. Everything you see is what you get. No hidden menu diving, that much anyway. And I love the simplicity of it and how easy it is to use. It's really easy to share lists with other Apple users. So, I have a shopping list that I share with my partner. That's really useful. And for someone who's completely in the Apple ecosystem, using the stock Reminders app, it just makes sense for me. And also, the thing I like is that this app is free. It's really easy to get caught up in a world of these subscriptions. There's loads of subscriptions. Everything's a subscription now in the App Store, really. And I have several myself. And what I don't want to do is have yet another one for an app that, in many cases, works well. The free ones work really well. So there's lots of features on the Reminders app, and some of which I'll talk today. But what this episode's really about is my workflow and how I use it, and some of the sort of the philosophy behind it. And I'd say that it's informed by my own experiences, and also my own research and reading I've done in terms of being, being productivity books. There's some really good books that I've read. One's called Essentialism, by Greg McKeown. Greg McKeown. There you go. I was going to say the name right. I got it written here. That's a book I'm currently on, and I really enjoy that book. It's given me lots of ideas on how to focus down and really kind of help how I plan to do things. So that's a book I really recommend. I'll put a link to that in the description below. I think it's really interesting. It's really helped me narrow down my priorities, and lots of that has informed the way I use to-do lists inside this Reminders app. Another one is Dopamine Nation, which is by Dr. Anne Lemke. There you go, said that right first time. Again, another really good book, which is about seeking balance between the stuff you have to do and the stuff that's fun. And that's been a balance that I've struggled to get right over the years. And I think my to-do lists also reflect the need for balance. And I'll talk about how I'll break those down in a moment. There's other books I've read as well. One I'm going to be really a bit controversial here. One I'm not really into, and I have read it, but lots of YouTubers are, is Atomic Habits. I'm just not massively into that book. I only got a couple of things from that book, really. I do think it's a little bit overrated. There are better books out there. Essentialism is one I recommend. It doesn't cover the same aspects as Atomic Habits, I suppose, but Essentialism, just in terms of helping you prioritize things, is definitely a book I recommend that you read. And as I said earlier, a lot of the way I operate my to-do lists is based on my own experiences and my own needs, and I'm going to share those with you today. And hopefully this is something that's going to be pretty useful for you, might inspire you in terms of the way you use your to-do lists and things like that. And it's pretty good. One thing I don't like about the stock app is the name, Reminders. I don't think that's a good title for this app. I think that's really good. Because it does remind you to do things, but it is essentially, and it can be a planner for you. Um, you can plan based on time. You can set things based on location. It helps you prioritize, and it's not a reminders app. It feels more than that, and I think they should probably rename it at some point in the future as they look in terms of what this app actually means. I don't think reminders is a good name, but anyway, that's just a little tangent I've gone on. So, where should we start? Let's start with this. One day, we're all going to die. Let's start there. And I think that when we're planning things, it's important to consider what our priority is. And the book Essentialism, which I've referred to, talks about priority being singular, and how the idea of priority is the pluralized version is a fairly modern idea, really, about narrowing things down. And, we're often pulled in all sorts of directions. And it's really important, I think, that we compartmentalize the things that we need to do. And it's important that our to-do lists work towards our priorities. And the number of priorities we have should be limited. And I would say ideally, our priorities should be around one thing. Obviously, we have other. There's lots of areas in our life that we have, don't we? We have work. We have stuff outside of work. We have stuff to do around the house. And essentially, we want to reduce the amount of things, the amount of projects we have on the go. Something for work, something for home, something for the house or the place you live in. Personal goals. You should kind of narrow it down as much as possible, which I think is what I've tried to do with this. So what I decided, the approach I took was looking at what's important. And that was my starting point. How do I define the word important? Because I don't want to fill up a to-do list with loads and loads and loads and loads of things. I want to really narrow it down. So let's think about what I consider important to be. Now, if we have a look at my my reminders app, this is how I've got it. You can create lists in the stock reminders app at the bottom corner, in sort of near the middle. You've got this add lists. You can add lists, as many lists as you want. Now, I work around 5 lists. I have a shopping list, which I share, and that's just a list, whatever. And that functions in an entirely separate way to how I use the rest of the app. I also have a list for work, and I just use that for work things. And then everything else is separated into 3 categories. And this is how I define what's important. So what's important is it should be something that's important, should be useful, or it should be interesting, or it should be fun. And that's how I've decided how I interpret the word important. That's how I break things down. So here are my 3 lists: useful, interesting, and fun, color coded, red, amber, green. The color codes mean nothing, but it's cool that you can color code lists. You can give each one an icon. I like that. It's really clean, really simple, really easy to kind of spot. So that's how I break things down. Now let's talk about each list and what that actually means. So useful is something that is working specifically towards the priority that you're looking to achieve. So my chosen priority is developing this YouTube channel, expanding it, kind of trying to make it a bit more successful, which includes work on this podcast. And this will contain things that help me work towards that goal. Sometimes it includes things that I need to do around the house, gardening, DIY, specific things that are going to be helpful there. But the bulk of this list is things that are useful to me in terms of working towards that one goal that I have. The next one the next list we have is something that's called interesting. And interesting is a list that's designed to make me better. It's a learning list. It's something that develops my knowledge around specific subjects. So as we can see here, I've got items that are to do with reading. I've got a masterclass account. I've got a course I'm working on. Some tutorials for music production equipment I have. So it's all about learning. Interesting is about learning. And then the last one are things that I've got that I consider fun. And the purpose of fun is to help you get that balance in your life. A to-do list for me isn't just about work, work, work. It's also about reminders that actually, in order to achieve good balance, you should have a list of things that you can just go to if you just need a break, if you need to decompress, you need to do something else. So this is the fun list that I have. Helps me avoid burnout. I'm going to be really honest with you. It's easy to get sucked in and hyper focused on all the things that are useful or interesting, but actually you do need that balance of having things that are fun. So that's in summary. Those are 3 lists that I've got that helps me achieve that balance. It's all clear, broken up categories, and the principle behind this is that across the week I should have ticked off a few things from all 3 lists. Then I've had a sort of a balanced week. So I have a couple of rules about how I use the to-do lists. The first one is, and some of you might disagree with me, I don't set specific times when stuff should be done. When I think of something to add to the to-do list, I add it, but I don't say I'm going to do this on Tuesday or this day, because for me, it's really easy to fall behind on tasks. Then it becomes demotivating, and then you feel like you're not making enough progress. So for me, using a to-do list is more about getting things done as opposed to when you get those things done. And I think that's really important. Now, sometimes I set a date on a task. So, for example, I've got my masterclass course under my interesting category, and it's really easy. You can tap on the I button next to a task, and then you can set a time that you want that to occur. Now, the only reason I set a date on some of these is that I want some of my tasks to repeat. So I want to make sure that I do something on the masterclass course weekly. So I've just set a date, and the date, I'll be honest, is pretty arbitrary. The main point is that I've ticked it off, and then it will come up as a to-do list item next week. There's something that I need to do at some point. And that's the main reason I use dates on occasions. The date is arbitrary, but getting those weekly or fortnightly reminders is really important. So yeah, I have some items that are set to every week, like my masterclass course. Every 2 weeks, I use my sampler. I just practice using that. That's under the fun list. And then I have this sort of monthly reflection, which I'll come to in a moment, and I set that as a once per month thing. So yeah, that's how I kind of use dates, but I don't set specific times because, as I said, for me that's quite a demotivating factor. The second rule I have is that I never have more than 7 things on each one of those 3 lists. The principle behind that is that if I have too big a list, it becomes overwhelming. And again, that's something that's demotivating. So a maximum of 7. And as you can see, my lists at the moment are under 7. My useful has 5 things, interesting has 4 things, fun has 4 things. So there's not tons of things under each one. If I hit the maximum of 7 and I need something else to add to that to-do list, then I need to remove something else. And that's a rule that I've just set for myself. Just keeping those to-do lists quite short, making that workload feel quite manageable. So I think that's something that's really important. So let's talk about now the idea of the reflection, because I've got this thing under my useful list that's called reflection. And on the reflection part, this is something that I set monthly. It's usually I'll do it at the start of the month. And what I'll do is I'll use this as a day where I'm not working towards anything on my to-do list, but it's a reflection day. So I will look at what I've done. over the course of the last month. I keep a daily journal using the Day One app, and I'll read through those, and I will kind of reflect on what I've done, look ahead, do some thinking, maybe do some reading, and that helps me get in the mindset to prepare for the following month. And from that, I might come up with new ideas or put some additional items on my to-do list. But that is a day of a sort of a break and reflection. And it could be something that's quite useful to you. I got that from the Essentialism book, and it's really useful in terms of just helping me work on kind of longer term goals. So I make sure that that comes up as a monthly item on my to-do list. Now, what I do is every day, sometimes in the morning or sometimes when I'm ready to start working here, so it could be the evening, I will look at my to-do list. It's the first thing I do as I open up this app, and I look at the priority of each list, and I'll rearrange it. It's really easy to rearrange items in the Reminders app. You just tap and hold, you can drag it up and down, and it's really easy. So I operate on whatever's at the top is the priority of that thing, priority of that list. Now there is a priorities function inside the Reminders app. So next to an item on your to-do list, if you tap the I button, you can swipe down and you can set the priority to low, medium, or high. And that puts a couple of exclamation marks in red next to it, a bit like what you have on emails and things when you set a priority for that. So that is something that I occasionally use, but to be honest, I try to keep things quite simple, and I have the most pressing thing at the top and everything else just filters further down. And that is fluid, so I'll sit there at the start of each day and I'll rearrange things based on the needs. And another feature that I really like, you can see on a couple of things here, is that you can add a URL to each item on your to-do list, which will just basically create a tappable link. So my masterclass course, I can tap that. It takes me straight to masterclass.com, and I can start my course as I need to. And I've got the same under my fun list. One of my items, which I think is quite good, and I do this quite often, this one's called Ask ChatGPT to suggest an album to listen to. So I'd use that one every few days, and it comes up with some quite good suggestions. And again, I've got a link to ChatGPT there. I suppose my one complaint, and it's something I hope they could do actually, particularly as it's an inbuilt app, is if the links could be expanded, so not just website links, but you could link to an app. That would be really useful. So if I've got a specific item on my to-do list, like, I don't know, keeping a daily journal, I can just tap on a link and it opens the app straight away. So having app links and things like that would be a really useful addition to Reminders. So what else have I got? I use tags. You can see that I think this is a fairly new thing, certainly within the last couple of generations of the Reminders app. You can set tags. So to do that, you just, next to your item on the to-do list, you tap the I button. You've got tags. You can add new tags to each one, but it remembers your previous tags. So it's easy just to select additional tags if you need it. Hit done and it adds those. And from the home screen of the app, on the left column at the bottom, you can see all of your tags. So you can just tap on a tag and it will show you all the ones to do with, like you can see here, learning or music, or goals or whatever you got set. You can select multiple tags or exclude them. So it's a nice filter system to really go through all of your to-do list items. I think that's really good. I think that's it. That's pretty much a summary of how I use the Reminders app. An app that I hope they rename, and an app that I hope that they continue to bring more features to, because I think it's a really good app. It's free, and if you work within the Apple ecosystem only, then I think it's great. I think it works really well. That's it. How do you use the Reminders app? What suggestions do you have for getting things done? And are there any other apps that you really like using instead of this one? Let me know in the comments below. That's the end of this podcast episode. I think it's been a bit of a shorter one this week. It's about 20 minutes or so. So, yeah, I hope you found that useful and enjoyable. Like, comment, subscribe. do all that usual stuff. If you enjoyed the podcast and you want to make a donation, head over to buymeacoffee.com/buzzkill to make a donation. Also got Buzzkill merch. If you go to buzzkill.shop, you can get t-shirts and bottles and mugs and all sorts of kind of stuff you might want to have if you want to wear my branding. Yay, please. And get involved. I'm trying to build up a community of people who really love using the iPad. I use it most of the time. I do have a Mac. That's how I do some of the bigger things. But actually, the iPad is a majority of my work now. And I'm looking to build up a community of people who really enjoy that workflow. Its ease of use, its portability, its flexibility. I think it's a great device. So get involved in this community we're building up here. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be back next week with another video on everything iPad. Goodbye.